Midnight Mass. What did you think?
Overall, I liked that show.
Overall, you liked it. Thumbs up?
Yeah, I'd say thumbs up. I think the show had some problems, but I thought it was a fairly unique take on vampires. I thought that it mined some very fertile ground with some of the specifically Catholic religious imagery, but with religious imagery in general. And I think it had a lot to say about, in its own weird way, it had a lot to say about religion. I think it was an interesting allegory for religion as a thing. You know what I mean? I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it definitely had some issues, and it wasn't all that scary or anything. But it was cool. I liked it. It was...
Okay, it's a show that I think I would recommend to people. It's visually beautiful. And
it was well shot.
The actors were all great.
Yeah.
I hated the shit out of it.
Oh, really?
I did not enjoy it. But I recognize that it's just probably my own thing. You're right. It's definitely a critique of religion.
Yes.
And definitely a critique of like kind of insular society. And also it was kind of a little bit of an allegory, especially towards the end, of like generational change, especially respects to I got a hint of like climate change from it. Like literally the island burns to the ground and the only survivors are the two kids. So I kind of got a little bit of that vibe from it too.
Well, I mean, I think there is you can make a comment there, because I mean the idea of the characters wanting to be young, the main character wanting to be, you know what I mean? It's the idea that he realizes that I think.
Well, I think that also, but I mean that's a religious thing. I think it also speaks to the idea of like eternal life. Like the Eucharist plays a huge role in this show.
You're right. And it is a religious thing. It's a promise.
Yes.
It's just that idea, even beyond religion, it's the idea that we die and it's a major bummer, and all of it to some degree is to waylay that despair and that fear and the bummer aspect of it, you know what I mean? To square that to some degree.
And it was pretty on the nose. Like it kind of the show at the very end, in one of its many monologues.
That was one of the problems.
That was a huge problem. But like the I forget her name, the one that was that had affection for the son, the one that had affection for Riley. She gives a monologue earlier in the season that's basically a nihilistic viewpoint on death. And then again, spoiler alert, towards the end as she's lying there dying, her monologue is the opposite. Like it speaks.
I don't think it was nihilistic. Her original one was your typical Christian.
Not hers. I mean, Riley's was nihilistic.
Yes.
His was
nihilistic. I mean, his was. I wouldn't say it was nihilistic. It was just. It was non. It was. It. I guess. I mean, I see what you mean, but it was. It was he wasn't. It was non-religious. It was. I'm going to stop. It's just a bunch of synapses in my brain are going to fire, and there was not any magic to it. It was a very kind of. It was non-spiritual. It was non. There was no mystical. It was almost a very dry take on what happens when you die. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think that, like, you're right, but I think in the context of the scene and the character and knowing what we know of, like, religion and the promise of an eternal afterlife and the context of the conversation he was having with that woman, it kind of had less of a sterile, scientific kind of, oh, this is what happens when we die kind of vibe, and more of like a life is pointless and meaningless, like death is just, committing to the dirt kind of vibe. So that's kind of the vibe that I got from his character in that monologue. And especially like weighed against a story that was it was kind of challenging. I feel like it was a story that was purposely challenging, like, religious thought around something that, culturally speaking, we all recognize as being bad and evil, like the vampire, right? but there was a lot said in it about, the vampire. They never used the word vampire at all.
Well, yeah, it was like The Walking Dead. They never used the word zombie.
Yeah.
Zombies don't exist in The Walking Dead. They're walkers. I don't know what they are.
But and that's kind of annoying. I'm always annoyed when shows do that. But
when you can get the sense of the show Bible through the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's some through line in the show that you're like, okay, obviously this was some kind of weird show Bible rule that they've adhered to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you feel you see the seams. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews says, Hellish Court or nah? Buddy, I'm sorry to tell you, but you just missed our rousing Hellish Court bout.
Oh, yeah, we played it for, hey, scroll back, actually. If you're on the stream, go back, I don't know, 40 minutes, and we play it for, almost an hour. It's pretty cool.
It was a lot of fun, but, I think we're
on
about
the Midnight Bass right now, and then we're going to call it.
Yeah, sorry, man, but come back next time, though. It's a fun as hell game, and I'm definitely going to play a lot more of it in the future. And I'm actually really surprised by how fun it is. So we talked at length about it.
But you can scroll back and we'll play it.
And at some point, I'm going to edit the video and upload it independently, rather. So, sorry you missed out on that, but join us next time. I'm going to be playing that game a lot more. And I'm going to put out an open challenge to anyone once I figure out how to play it online using that app. If you ever want to play me, I'll be down for it. I'm down for some dueling with
anyone.
If
you grapple him, you can cut his head off.
Come on,
9 times out of 10.
Don't give away my weakness. That's my weakness in life too. If you see me at the grocery store and you just grab me.
I think if anyone sees anybody else and they've got a sword and they grapple them, they can probably cut their head.
Yeah. Anyways, so cool. Check that out, man, and please come back, like and subscribe, and get the notifications so that when I do pop on and play Hellish Court next time, you'll be notified. So, anyways, I feel like they never use the word vampire in this show, and I actually like that because in place of it, it's not that they don't ever address it. In place of it, they call the vampire an angel. And
yeah, well, I mean, they don't ever say the word demon either. He looks just like a demon. You know what I mean?
That's just because the priest who was turned by that thing, he was just trying to come to terms with whatever he was dealing with, and I feel like he forced himself into believing that this thing that very clearly isn't an angel was an angel, But, I mean, they use a lot of biblical language to kind of convey that point.
I thought that was actually one of the show's strongest points, is all the stuff he made. It's like, in the Bible, when they see Michael, they're scared of him.
Yeah, they say, be not afraid.
He looks
scary, but be not afraid. The Bible tells us, be not afraid.
And at the same time, I liked how they're really the worst character in the whole show, as far as the meanest, the true villain of the show, which wasn't the vampire. I mean, he was the villain, but the true villain was, what was her name? It's been a while since I finished it.
I can't remember.
But
she's
she was great. The actress
the priest,
was great. God,
the priestess, rather, whatever.
The priestess.
I don't know what they call them in Catholicism. I'm not a Catholic.
She was the church lady.
There's
not really. She wasn't a nun, dude. She was just like an enthusiast.
She was hardcore
religious enthusiast.
Let me see if I could get that name.
She's right there. She played
Bev. Yes. Bev.
Yeah, dude. She was
brutal.
Really rough, man.
She was actually they did a great job writing her and a good job of her portraying that role, because I hated that character as much as I hated Joffrey. There was a lot of that same
and
vibe.
At the end it was pretty sweet because she's out there and she's gonna try and then she has that moment where she's like, this is bullshit. She tries to dig in the dirt.
Yeah.
There was something so biblical about that, and it was almost feel like you're reading a Bible verse, and they will dig in the dirt to hide from the sun, but the sun will burn the, whatever. Yeah. It was, that show had, the funny thing is that show had several major actual just kind of problems in its kind of basic storytelling stuff. But a lot of the main concepts of that show I thought were great.
Well, that's the thing. The main concepts were great. The idea behind it was great. But, man...
the performances were great. And honestly, some of the writing was actually quite great. There was just too much...
The monologue
too much
killed
monologue.
me. The monologue killed me.
It's like one, and the monologues taken by themselves weren't bad. There were some of them. There were some good monologues.
Yeah.
The problem is there were so many monologues that it became almost a joke by the end of the movie.
It was literally a joke.
Holy shit! Are you kidding me?
In that last episode, I remember literally when, it was either the last or the next to last. The doctor is talking to the sheriff, and he goes, "Did I ever tell you why I came here?" And I went, "Oh God, here comes a monologue."
Yeah, no.
And it was literally like an 8-minute long.
It was, and the camera would always pull in very slowly
on everyone.
Yes, and it became such a cliche. And it's one of those things. Maybe they didn't realize they were doing it until the end. I don't know, or maybe it was. The story got started. It was originally a novel that the guy was going to write.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And maybe in a novel sense, it could be a style thing. But there's some things when taken over, you still have to have a certain verisimilitude with regards to how people act and stuff. And not everybody in the town has a fucking monologue in their back pocket.
Or we'll just sit there and like not say a word for 8 minutes while somebody's talking. Like when that doctor was sitting there, I was like, if anybody is gonna like engage with somebody who's telling them a story that this guy's telling him, he was like, I was a cop, I came up as a detective after 9/11, I worked with the FBI. Like that other person would be interjecting with like, really? Like no way. Like wait a second, so you advanced? Like it would be like back and forth. But like no, she didn't say. She just sat there.
No one ever says a word. Everyone lets everyone talk. Like for hours. And another thing, and then also there's there's no vampires in this world, which I can see the boom, but also just the basic thing of like, oh, so these are vampires. The guy's got a poster of Seven on his wall in his bedroom, and this is a universe where Seven is a movie. Not that there were any vampires in Seven, but we have modern cinema that's you know what I mean? And
if Seven exists, then probably Dracula.
You would think, you know what I mean? And yet no vampires. No, it's not a thing. No one's like, so we drink blood and we can't be we burn in the sun. We're all vampires. We're vampires, right? Is that what we're doing?
Nobody knew they couldn't be burned in the sun. Well, I guess the priest
main guy
did, and I guess the little circle.
Bev knew, and the dude the next day knew.
But those guys, those were like the diehard fanatics, right? And like I'm willing to throw a bone at the show for saying that okay, the diehard fanatics are willing to just buy into this thing, but everybody else in the town, as soon as they figured out what was happening, as soon as that winged dude showed up and they started killing people and bringing them back, they all should have been like, oh fuck, vampires. Exactly. Somebody. Yeah. At least one person in that entire.
Yeah. People behaved in the show like in ways they wouldn't behave, which is a pet peeve of mine in any horror movie.
Huge pet peeve. I was so mad at that last episode from all of like the weird choices and like the things that like the two kids were like going to the canoe and trying to, and then at the very end they just start talking.
You're like, shut up and get on the fucking canoe.
What the fuck are you doing? Like you can have this conversation while doing this.
That was a huge. It's funny. We watched it separately, but we had many similar thoughts.
And like the same one, like when they went into the house and saw like it was the vampire's lair and he was like eating whatever, and like she shoots him and he's just like, well, whatever, and then she like puts the gas on him. I was like, okay, cool. But then like she puts a trail of the gas way out to like the middle of the street, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like you don't need to go that far into the street. Just like get into the door, light it, and run. But they had the whole thing where they had to trail it all the way out to the middle of the street, and they stood there, they looked at each other, they lit the lighter, they looked at each other, and then he dropped it.
And the rules for their bloodlust seem to be weirdly convenient. Like certain characters that were vampires could somehow control their bloodlust. Certain characters that
that's the good people.
You know what I mean?
I feel like there's a message there about like people who are fake Christians or whatever, and people who are real Christians, and like being able to suppress your temptations, being able to live a godly life.
They do talk about that, where the guy's like, you don't actually have to do this.
Yeah, you don't have to.
You know what I mean?
I just don't want to.
I feel the same urge,
to sin the way that they sin.
I can do it. Yeah. But I mean, and but also too, it's like the priest who at this point had drank from the vampire, all that shit. He has multiple days in the sun. I guess he hadn't died yet.
He hadn't died yet. That's what it was.
Yeah, I guess. And he didn't. I guess the idea they were saying is that he refused to drink blood until he died, and then when he died, he did. When he came back to life, he drank blood, and then he was on board.
I don't know when that transition happened, though.
Well, when he came in and he
I remember he walked into the cabin and he collapsed.
Just fucking collapsed. He died.
But then when did he drink the blood?
I think he came back to life.
He came back to life at some point, though.
I think he came back to life, but then needed the blood. Although he already needed the blood. Again, details are a little sketchy.
It's a little sketchy.
You can't. And I guess their point was there wasn't a lot of thought, it seems, into having it all just add up and make sense in that regard.
Yeah.
But we lost a viewer. But we're down to just us. I guess worries. They haven't watched Midnight.
And that's fine. It's a spoiler alert. So.
But and I was able to let some of it go. There were moments that I really did like about it. There were also moments I thought were kind of weird. There's a moment in the end, which I thought the end was actually pretty cool, but mainly because I liked the actor that played the priest, and I thought he was so good.
He was great. He was great.
You like him, and you're like, oh, he's like like the young hip priest. Even though I guessed it was the old priest, like way before they actually revealed it. But I for some reason I guessed that it was kind of a vampire movie, like really early. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they revealed it, and then then he becomes bad. He's just like fully on the tilt of he's buying what Bev is selling. He's just like it's God's army, and he bums out his. I also guessed that he was with that girl because I was like
I didn't guess that part.
I was like he seems way too motivated to give her the sacrament, and I was like, and that when I knew that there was something going on before the first guy died. Remember, because in the cabin he's like, well, there were rumors that the old priest was with, and I was like, okay, he's with what's her face's mom.
Wait,
that's what this is all about.
I don't remember that.
So the town drunk who was excellent. Before he kicks the bucket. Right before he kicks the bucket, he's talking to the young priest, and he talks about how much he looks like the old priest. And he's obviously weirded out, and he's trying to get the fuck out of there. But he's trying to make like nervous small talk, and he's like, well, there are rumors about the old priest. You could be his son. I know priests aren't supposed to, but there are rumors that he did. And I was like, oh, he's with what's-her-face. That's why he keeps showing up to give her the sacrament, because he's turned young and he wants to make her young. I guess that really early on. But I loved how that guy was able to pull it back, and then he's like, holy shit, what? He's like, we're the wolves. He's like, fuck it, I have so fucked this up, you know what I mean?
This isn't right.
Yeah, and he's like, he sees all their eyes, and he's like, holy shit. And he goes in there, he sees his daughter, even though that was kind of weird. He's like, honey, I'm your dad, by the way, and you're doing a great job. Yeah. Keep burning the church down.
She's like, okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'm going to go burn to death. I'm going to go burn to death with your mom. But
that was another scene that was like, why didn't you just set the church on fire already? There was so much in between. Like, they had to really build up to where she walks to the candle, and then, wait, and then she tips it over.
Yeah.
And it's like,
well, I mean,
I get it, cinematic tension and all of that sort of stuff, but like in a show that has bogged down 7 episodes of monologue after monologue and like fucking dragging shit out.
It also seemed like they burned the whole island down. Seemed ill-advised. Now that Bev actress sold it. She sold it.
But as soon as she started setting houses on fire, I was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on.
Well, yeah, exactly. But then I'm like, you know what? If I'm one of these vampire dudes, and maybe I'm not cool, although most of them were so riddled with guilt because of what they had done, they were probably happy to burn. They realized but if you were like, hold on, like, I haven't drank any blood, you know what I mean? And I may not want to burn to death this evening. There seemed like you could find someplace out of the sun somewhere on this island. It wasn't like they had burned every scrap. A cardboard box.
A cave or something?
A cardboard box.
A cardboard, yeah.
You know what I mean? A trunk.
Or you could just hide under some rubble, like the rubble of a burned out building.
Flip the boat over, or the rubble, or any number of things that you could have done. Granted, that wasn't the point. I understand.
Yeah.
It's and I get that, and I'm some of it. Again, your ability to accept that is directly proportional to how much you are sold into the main themes and the main characters that are trying to sell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because every movie's got a million of that shit in it. You know, and in general, I thought the actors were all good, and I thought their characters were fairly well developed. You know what I mean? Because they had lots of monologues.
Yeah, they better be well developed. Yeah. Considering
I would have liked to have seen. Again, I would have preferred if the show had shown us more of the characters than told us. You know what I mean? There was so much telling the characters, and they could have done like Bev.
Well, it's an interesting conundrum because it's a show that has a ton of characters. I mean, it's very Twin Peaksian in that regard. But unlike Twin Peaks, which was 29 episodes per 2 seasons or 3 seasons, they had 7 episodes.
Yeah, 7. Yeah.
So like they have to figure out a way to fit all of that shit into 7 episodes. To which I would say, cut a lot of it out. Like, there are a lot of characters that we probably could have done without.
We didn't need there were multiple monologues we didn't need. Yeah. I think there were characters that were both alarming and sympathetic, and actually in their own ways decently developed, that never had a monologue at all, barely had any lines, like the guy who was kind of like the henchman.
The henchman, yeah.
You know what I mean?
The repair guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great. He was like, I understood that character perfectly.
Exactly.
Without any monologue.
Exactly. They could have filled in a lot of the extra characters like that without a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
Even the mom, who never had a monologue except kind of at the very end, but it wasn't much of a monologue. She just basically said, you're not a good person.
Yeah, Bev, you're not a good person.
And she's like,
why does that make you so angry? Like when other people can be forgiven or whatever, or when God loves everyone equally. Why does that make you so angry? Like that was a good moment.
It was.
That was a great line, because not only was it a great line for the mother, it was a great line in helping define the Bev character.
Yeah,
because she also, I don't think she gets. Maybe she does get a monologue, and I just blocked it out.
I don't think she does.
I don't think she gets a monologue.
She doesn't talk about herself ever.
Yeah, she does scripture shit.
Exactly.
Like,
she has moments where she goes on long little speeches.
Yeah.
When they pull in, but those I didn't mind so much because it's giving you that kind of like underpinning for how this is happening.
It's building the religious allegory.
Exactly.
And that's like the one part. Like I think at the end she kind of went a little long on one of them, and I got kind of tired of it. But for the most part, her character throughout that series did an excellent job of building the religious allegory, as far as from the point of view of religion being, a hindrance, towards society, rather than I think the preacher or the pastor or whatever he is, whatever you call him, the priest. I think he kind of was more on the order of, wanting to do good through the vehicle of religion, and, obviously
he was such a deeply flawed, unhappy character. You know what I'm saying? Because of everything you learn about him, that
that's what I
think had this kid out of wedlock.
I think a part of that story is how being deeply unhappy and deeply flawed draws a lot of people towards religion and the promise of forgiveness. And
in some ways, it actually is helpful, because in some ways, and they really get off of it kind of quick. But for the drunk. There was a moment where it was helpful for him. There was an aspect of it that helped. But that's the thing. There's also this vampire aspect out there murdering people. You know what I mean? And that's why it was a good allegory. It was a dense work of horror that had something to say. You know what I mean? And it had
in a certain respect, it had too much to say.
You're right, but it had great performances, and it was beautifully shot. And in general, I think it was. I'm going to say it was good with problems. You know what I mean? But
this is why,
but good.
And that's why I say I would recommend it to anyone. Well acted, well shot, beautiful. But I hated it, and it's just because it drug out it. I have, and this is a thing with me, and maybe I need to go to therapy about it or something. But there gets to a certain point, and this happened to me when I watched. What was the movie? Magnolia?
Oh, yeah. Well, Magnolia will do that, too.
Well,
Magnolia is kind of a beatdown.
There's a certain point where...
It's a great movie, but I've only seen it once.
If something gets, too on its face pretentious, or I get, the sense that it's, pretentious, I will just outright start to hate the living shit out of it. And by, the third or fourth monologue with the slow pan in, and, it lost me. It lost me almost permanently. I didn't really want to continue watching it until I think it was the 3rd episode, when the reveal of the vampire, whatever episode that was. Yeah. That was when I was like, oh, I'm going to keep watching this just to see how it develops.
Yeah.
But it was still it was slow developing still. I fast forwarded. I actually literally fast forwarded through probably 70% of the episode where Riley died, Like, there got to a point where the monologuing was so heavy that I literally just went boop, and I saw the thumbnails, and I just scrolled through all the thumbnails right to the very end.
Yeah, but that episode had some good some moments, man.
I think I caught them all.
With the priest. You know
I saw his scenes in that one.
Yeah.
But like when he's talking to the girl rowing out in the boat and shit, I skipped through a lot of that up until the very end. Like, and I watched that part.
I did like about that episode, which you probably didn't get the way you watched it, was you're not really sure which way it's going to go.
Oh, I knew exactly which way it was going to go.
I knew. Eventually, I was like, oh, I get it.
As soon as
the sun's coming up, it all makes sense.
As soon as he said, let's go on the boat, I was like, oh, okay, he's going to go burn himself in the sun. Like, I knew exactly where it was going.
Yeah, but you didn't know he was a vampire at that point.
Yes, you did know. Because at that point, he got eaten and he came back. And then, like, the best part of that episode was when he was in, because he's retelling, like, the story is kind of a flashback. He's retelling the story of what happened to him when he was attacked by the vampire to the woman on the boat. So when you see him retell that story, he's sitting in the little rec center with the priest, and he's trying to walk him through becoming a vampire. Like, you're chosen, like, this is a blessing from God, etc. And they have this whole back and forth. That was great. That was fine. But there was a lot of stuff outside of that I was like, this is really, really bogging down, like, what I'm interested in this episode. Like, and once he was like, and I knew that he was already going to go out. He's not telling her this story so that he can kill her. Like, he's telling her this story so that she knows why he's about to burst into flames.
I liked that she felt an implied tension where you're like,
oh, absolutely.
She was like, there was a moment out there where there was a little implied tension, even though he's gonna light himself on fire. Yeah. He's not gonna gonna go there. But she doesn't exactly know that, as if she's taking him at his word. But then you have to think about his dream. You're like, oh, okay, we've ended up here, multiple times already. But the monologuing thing was I thought a funny trope by the end of the show, but it didn't completely kill it for me.
It's just because I was irritated by the pretentiousness of it.
Yeah, it was pretentious, but I guess it was pretentious. But I guess I wasn't.
This guy looks totally different with that head of hair.
As bothered by it. I don't. I guess the monologues in general were okay. If the monologues had been really terrible,
no, like most of them, most of them on by themselves were good. Like, and I could see all of these actors using any one of their 7 monologues to get better roles, springboard off of this. Like, any one of these people could springboard off of this. Who is this?
That's
this is
the
mother?
Mom, yeah.
Jesus, she looks like fucking 20 years younger in this picture.
That's crazy. I guess maybe they aged her up or something. Although, I don't know, it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell, like, some actresses, because they have pictures on online from like the last 15 years,
Yeah.
But yeah, she looks like she must aged up for the show.
I really liked the sheriff.
Yeah, he was great.
He was a great character.
I didn't really.
He was a great actor.
I didn't need his monologue at the end. Have you seen?
I didn't need his monologue.
He's really great. He's really great in Haunting of Bly Manor. You should watch that.
Oh, was he in Bly Manor?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes some sense.
Yeah. And this guy, I will say, this director likes to work with a certain group of people. You know what I mean?
That's cool. Then, like, okay, so like, I like the director. I don't have any problems with.
He wrote the script, though.
Well, I know, but I was gonna say, like as far as the physical construction of the show, I guess I don't have any problems with any of it. I know that before in our earlier broadcast, we kind of joked about like the dilapidated state of these beachside houses and shit, but all of that, it's for the purpose of having like an insular community that you're telling the story about.
I mean, it just kind of it stretched the belief a little bit, but
I'm willing to go with it. You know,
and the way it ended, to me, it seems like a small gripe.
It is a small gripe. It's a very small gripe. It's probably not even a gripe more than just a jibe, but like I like what he put together as far as like a completed piece of work here.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't mind monologuing and all that, so if you like that shit, then this is right up your alley. If you love characters going on extended monologues, one after another, then this is probably going to be the best shit you'll ever see.
Well, what I'm getting
years.
for you is that in retrospect you liked it, but when you were watching it, you did not. Like the experience of watching it. was a bummer. But when you look back at the whole thing, you're like, yeah, it was pretty good.
No, like my attitude is literally. I was literally saying this as I was watching it. I was like, this show isn't bad. It's just fucking annoying to me. You know, like, and I wish I wasn't so annoyed every time a character slipped into a monologue. You know, and for a show that's only 7 episodes,
it'd be funny to recut it and cut out all the monologues, or at least all the a lot of them, and then just see what you've got.
It would probably be like a 4-episode show. I think maybe 5.
I don't know about that.
Maybe 5. It's a lot. It's a lot. And there's some things like the way that it ended. I felt like they were building up certain things that it just kind of like.
I actually like how it ended.
I like
everyone dies. The entire town burns to the ground. Vampires dead. Church over.
Yeah.
The only people who are left are the 2 kids, and that's it. You know
yeah. They were building stuff up towards like the doctor finding out about the blood, but like.
Yeah. See, the thing is like that. To me, that was just enough. I would not want him to open a can of worms in the superhero territory with trying to give us some bullshit explanation of like, actually what it is. It's
that's the midichlorian territory more than this
like,
the superhero
that
territory.
Noise. And I was like, please don't do that. Please don't do that.
They came real close
to that. They sure did, boy.
They came real close.
I mean? And I just took it as like, well, she's a scientist and she can't, the mystical aspects of it, she can't
poke the bear on it.
Yeah, to her, that's just how she. I mean, it was kind of a saying as a person that can look at these events and not see the supernatural. You know what I mean? It's like they can see like, well, that's some kind of weird mutant that's some that's late stage and whatever this is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And although again, at a certain point, you're like, okay, how much more vampire-y, you know what I mean? It's fucking Nosferatu with wings.
Yeah.
Does it need to be before everyone goes, okay, it's fucking vampires? You know what I mean?
They just don't have vampires in that
or
world.
demons. It's like they don't have...
They have Bibles, but they don't have demons.
Yeah.
But, they put so much trust, and that's one of the critiques I was giving about it is like, this town... like a lot of it is so incredibly two-dimensional. Like the only thing any of these people ever have going in their lives is going to church. Like there's nothing else.
And that brings us full circle to our previous conversation about politics.
This is even before they don't watch football. They don't watch baseball. They don't watch reality TV. They don't fucking go to a fish fry. I guess they had a little cookout, but that was after church. They don't do anything that doesn't revolve around church. It was incredibly two-dimensional.
Not at first, though. Remember, because the whole point in the beginning was that no one was really going to church. You know what I mean? And there are lots of people that live in the town that obviously don't go to church because that's who all the vampires ate at the end. You know what I mean? Remember, because there are people in their houses.
I guess not focusing on those guys just reinforced the two-dimensional feel of
there
what I felt the town.
And there are people,
and
there are people in the school that were not about the whole Bibles at school thing. About half that class was like, when she was making her case, they were like wagging their head, and the other half was like, yeah. I mean, I get the sense that was a large community of the town, but.
I didn't even get the sense that the community was that large because the focus was so heavily on the religious people. Like it felt like Animal Crossing, it was just an Animal Crossing island.
I will say this: that they didn't do a great job. They didn't do a great job of there's another thing. A funny thing is they didn't do a great job of making the town seem alive beyond the characters that we were focused on. It really seemed like the entire town was like the 20 characters that we were kind of focused on. But also, what was funny is that they made the show seem like they made it a big deal about how the sheriff was Muslim and he didn't fit in here. But then in the church, there were tons of it was extremely ethnically diverse. And I was like,
very ethnically diverse town.
I was like, wow.
And they all hate Muslims.
Well, that was the funny thing. I was like, come on. I was like, it's like, trying to have an ethnically diverse cast runs directly into the demands of the story. The demands of the story are this is a New England fishing island full of a bunch of kind of racist, bigoted white people that are super religious and insular. But that's not an area you can really, you don't really want to do that. So it's like they've got this.
So you got diversity casting, but the diversity casting all hates Muslims.
Exactly. It doesn't really fit the story to some degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you understand why they do it. You're just kind of like, what are you going to do?
It's really fucked up at the end when Bev shoots him in the stomach, and he's like, "Eh?" And she's like, "Unpure blood." And he's like, "Really?" Yeah. And
have you seen your congregation?
Yeah, that's brutal. That's almost like the show is admitting maybe Muslims' bloods are a little impure. These vampires don't want it. What's going on with that Muslim blood?
Honestly,
that was a pretty rough moment. It was funny. It was a funny moment, but
it was funny because he was just like, "God damn, you're racist."
Even as a vampire monster, it's the Muslim thing.
Yeah. You have uncontrollable bloodlust, but this doesn't do it for you. What the fuck? Your problems are worse than I thought.
It's like you're way worse than just a vampire.
Yeah, no shit.
That was a good moment. I like that moment a lot. But no, you're right. It is I kind of had a similar critique of a moment in Dune. I don't want to spoil it for you. Did you ever watch the David Lynch Dune?
No.
Are you familiar with Dune, like the general story or some
not
shit?
really. I know it's about a planet called Arrakis, and there's a worm there that they get the spice.
Yeah, and like the indigenous people there are called the Fremen.
Yeah,
and
they're indigenous. They're from Earth. They're humans that have populated Arrakis. Yeah,
but but in the allegory of Dune, they're basically Arabs. But in the David Lynch Dune, all the Fremen were white. And then you have the main character, Paul, who is kind of like a Messiah allegory. He comes in.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, they prophesize him as being, the whatever. But in the David Villanueva, I think that's his name, right?
Danny
Villeneuve. Villeneuve?
Yeah.
Fuck that name up. But in his version, the Fremen are all like diverse casting, which makes sense for the allegory they're going for. Sure. But it unintentionally gives the Paul character a white savior vibe.
Oh, no.
So it has like a real white savior.
It's like when you fix a bug in software that breaks something
else.
God,
yeah, exactly.
Now I'm a white savior. Shit.
Yeah, it's unintended consequences for certain, but it just reminded me, your critique there just reminded me of that. But
no, it was fun. I was like, because they make several comments about the town being backwards and all this stuff. I was like, actually, the town seems really diverse.
It's a very multicultural town.
I was like,
it's like, man, what kind of jobs program do they have out here that they're pulling in all these? There's black people, there's Muslims, there's fucking all sorts of people out here. But that's my long and short of it, is that I think people who want to see a new horror show, and like everybody likes this guy's work. I haven't watched Blind Manor, but I've heard nothing but good things about it.
It was good.
I tried watching Haunting a Hill House, but I just couldn't get into it.
I thought Haunting a Hill House was far scarier than Blind Manor. Personally,
I didn't watch enough to get into that.
Blind Manor makes the mistake that and Haunting a Hill kind of does too. I don't like it when the ghosts, like there's a moment in season 1 of American Horror Story in which that was the moment I quit watching it, where all the ghosts meet down in the basement of the haunted house. And it's like Melrose Place with ghosts. You know what I mean? Because they're all like recently made ghosts. They're characters from the show that were human earlier, but now they're ghosts.
And they're all just kind of chatting.
And they're all just like down there doing, and I was like, okay, fuck this show. You know what I mean?
Haunting a Hill House does that?
It has a little bit of that. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
The Blind Manor does, and Haunting of Hill House does. I want to say Blind Manor maybe has a little bit more of it, maybe, but they just kind of, it reaches a point where you start to be like, okay, a lot of the mystery and horror that I felt earlier in the movie is now starting to be chipped away at, because like I know all the ghosts now.
I'm friends with all the ghosts.
Yeah, a lot of the ghosts are characters from earlier in the show. Yeah. I'm not remotely scared of them, even though they're dead. You know what I mean? And we've come up with some rules about the house. Things are much scarier when we don't know what it is.
When you don't know the rules.
We don't know the rules.
When you don't know the rules and you don't know the threat. Like
exactly.
there's more
fear
shark
in the water. It's like that. That's the thing. Don't show the shark. We don't need to see it. You know what I mean? It's much better it's much better if we don't know the rules and we can't see the shark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like Michael Myers was scary because we
didn't know the rules.
We didn't know the rules. Is he human?
Can you kill him with a gun?
Him? Where is he? Why does he walk so slow? What
catch up with you?
What is his motivation? We don't even know he was in an insane asylum. That's scary from a killing standpoint. It's like, it's like Scream. I wasn't ever all that scared of the movie Scream because it was just like a serial killer on a thing. The guy was, it was a very human.
And I think maybe that's why Midnight Mass wasn't scary, because we all know the vampire rules.
Yeah.
And we know what the threat was. The threat was actually I want to say misdirect, but it really wasn't a misdirect. Like, the threat wasn't the vampire, the threat was religion.
Yes.
And so we're watching that unfold as the threat, using the vampire, the rules of vampirism that we're familiar with to kind of push that.
And that's why the show is good. I mean, essentially, the vampire, his victims in the show were, all the people that he killed, but in real life, the victims are,
and the vampire's into it. Clearly.
Well, that was pretty weird when he had the coat on. I was like, holy shit, he's obviously somewhat sentient.
Yeah.
Where he was wearing a hat and
This is a higher vampire. Like, Geralt didn't have a problem with this guy.
Yeah, he definitely seems like not maybe like the elder. Did you ever do the arc in Blood and Wine where you caught the elder
high
vampire?
Elder, yeah.
High Elder? He looked kind of like that, right?
He does. He does look like that.
Yeah, I thought that, obviously it wasn't a nod, but I thought it kind of seemed like a nod.
It kind of has that vibe. But the wings, when I saw his wings, I was like, oh, that's like the Beast of Beauclair.
Yeah.
He pops his wings out.
Yeah, it was very much like an animal. I loved, though, how she took him out, where she let him eat, and she was like, just keep focused on it. And she just cut his wings up, and he tries to fly away. Because he's obviously not very bright. He's more animal, essentially, at that point.
How bright could he... How bright is he, though? Like,
that's a good question.
It seems like he's animalistic when he's feeding, which kind of keeps in the vampire trope.
True.
But, clearly he has some level of intelligence. He's manipulating all of these people.
It's true, and he knows to show up and manipulate the priest. I mean, he essentially manipulated the priest to get out of his little prison. I got the sense that he was like imprisoned during biblical times or some shit. It was just this demon that was locked under the ground, and he manipulates the priest to get out of there. But I liked the fact that they didn't go into it. I don't need to fucking know about the man. I don't need his story. You know what I mean? Like, I don't... His name was Dargamook. And he was, you know what I mean? And, like, they show pictures in a book. Whatever.
You know what? You don't know if he got away in time or not, so maybe there'll be a Midnight Mass prequel where you see this guy.
He was toast.
In the medieval ages. In a way, find his origin story.
I would have liked to have seen him burn, because that classic horror
for that
trope,
reason.
If you don't see him die, they're not really dead. But the guy was like, it's 30 miles, he can barely fly. And dude, there is no place to hide over the ocean. He was toast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And which has got to be a rough way for him to go, you know what I mean? It's like he finally got out of his hole and he gets to burn to death over the ocean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you
lie
in the bed you make it, buddy.
Just like Bev, dude, her face burns off.
Yeah.
That was pretty... It was a pretty brutal thing, man. Her face is the first thing that burns, and you see the outline. Although one of the things I did like about the show was he has that moment where he's in the boat and he's hallucinating. The girl's across from him, and she takes his hand, and you're like,
and then a scene cuts, and his face is like,
you know it's happening, but you're like, what's going to happen?
You're like, wait, what is
back?
You're like, what is?
He's obviously dying.
He's like, what does this look like in the real world right now?
And they cut.
It's like,
and she's just screaming,
That was good. That was good. Yeah.
Overall, the show was good. Had problems, but it was good. I liked it. In some ways, I liked it more than Bly Manor, and maybe more than the first movie. But maybe not. The Haunting Hill House was legitimately scary. When I watched that, I was like, it was like, I know that like when I fall asleep after I watch this, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm going to be dealing with this. You know what I mean? There were some moments like that in that movie, in that show. As it gets towards the end, again, it starts to lose its whatsy, as most, horror stuff does when they start revealing stuff or figuring stuff out or,
A lot of movies have third act problems, and
Yeah,
horror
it's like-
movies are chief among them.
That's what made That's what made The Shining great and The Exorcist great, because they don't really work anything out in those movies. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just like it just keeps going and gets fucking crazy. You don't know what's happening, and you just know that they've got to leave. They leave, it's over. You know, you're disturbed. Exorcist. They get to the bottom of it, maybe.
Maybe,
The guy
but the guy
gives
dies.
his life and to essentially stop it, and that's it. You're just super disturbed. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's not like you get a sense that it's truly been banished or any of that kind of stuff, or it couldn't happen again. Who even fucking knows? Because they don't go into it. They don't explain any of it. You know, it's just some really terrible shit that happened. It's Homer, you know.
All right, well, Justin recommends it. I recommend it. I openly admit that I was annoyed by it, but I think a lot of other people who aren't me will love the hell out of it, so that's why I recommend it. Midnight Mass. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you liked what I said, what Justin said, if you like the content we're providing, if you had any kind of laughs at all, even if you hate us, if you hate my guts, if you want to stab me, if you want to say all sorts of horrible things to me, cool. Like the video, subscribe. You'll get fed all sorts of shit you'll probably hate. And if you like us, you'll get fed all sorts of shit you probably like. So, please and thank you.